That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, so we're going to go through, talk about some of these running backs that I've been getting questions in the live stream like, oh, Mason, should we go and start running back X? And I'm like, why would you consider doing that? No, we have to be avoiding these running backs at all costs. I know I titled the video as 5 running backs, but we actually have 8 guys. This is based on matchup. This is based on their usage. This is based on their offense. Of course, we're going to dive in depth with every single running back. So wait around for that. But before we get into it, you know exactly what we have to do here. I had to go through and give out some fantasy flock network hats. We don't have a hat on us, so I can't show it with the screen. Thomas can put it up there. And yeah, with these hats, we're giving away multiple hats every single day. To enter in to win a fantasy flock network hat, you just have to be subscribed to the channel, drop a like on the video, and leave a comment down in the comment section after you drop that like. Literally, the comment can be anything, whether just asking me a start-sit question, asking me a trade question, telling me you enjoyed the show. It doesn't matter what it is. And our first winner is going to be coming up as Samuel Fernandez. We're not even going to read these comments. We're just going to announce those names. And our next one will be Eric McKenzie. So thank you so much for supporting the channel. And of course, just go to the description of the video once you win that hat and send me an email with your physical address. That way I can ship you that hat out ASAP. I actually just shipped out like 30 hats today from the past week's winners. So yeah, of course, if you just want a hat, I mean, get ready to see yours in a little bit. But let's go through and let's get this list going. And of course, if you disagree with me, let me know in the comment section. But we're going to start this one off with a running back that comes away with 2 rushing touchdowns this past week, playing in one of the best offenses in football. I mean, and in my opinion, this is a game that I think could easily turn into the highest scoring game of the week. Let's go with James Conner here. Now, with James Conner, yes, coming away with 2 rushing touchdowns this past week really confirms exactly what we kind of thought about James Conner coming into the season, is that he was a committee running back that has the goal line role on Arizona, that if anything were to occur to Chase Edmonds, all of a sudden James Conner becomes a must-start running back for us. And if you are just desperate for a bye week plug-in, then sure, you can go with Conner. But here, to be honest, against the Los Angeles Rams, while the Rams, yes, have a very strong offense, and that maybe is the strength of the team, their defense is still an elite unit, to be honest. I mean, we're not wanting to go in and jam running backs against the Los Angeles Rams, knowing that the Rams are going to be a team that is most likely leading the majority of the game here against the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, right now, the Los Angeles Rams are actually 4-point favorites in this matchup. And yes, the Cardinals have looked fantastic, but with James Conner, at the end of the day, while he does have that goal line role, something we also need to address is the fact that Kyler Murray himself is also like a goal line running back once this team gets down there. We saw this with 2020 with Kyler Murray just vulturing a ton of rushing touchdowns away from Kenyon Drake, and you're getting the same thing happening this year. Now, yes, James Conner does come out and get lucky this past week with those 2 scores. That shouldn't be something you're predicting going forward. However, I mean, so far this season, he's only had 35 rush attempts, 122 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. And most importantly, what I want to point out here with James Conner is he's only had 1 reception for 10 receiving yards. And that's because Chase Edmonds is the running back that's actually getting more valuable touches in this offense, as Chase Edmonds is the player that's getting targeted out of the backfield. Essentially, James Conner just has his a very specific role as the short-term running back, as that guy that if it's on 3rd and 2, then sure, they can go through and jam James Conner in there if they're trying to get that short yardage push. But I think more so, you're going to be planning on starting Chase Edmonds on a week-to-week basis, knowing that his usage in the receiving game's a lot safer than the usage at the goal line that James Conner has. I still definitely want to be rostering James Conner everywhere, and I think that he will turn into a must-start running back for us, despite whatever the matchup is, if he has a scenario where Chase Edmonds is missing the game. Because if Edmonds misses, then James Conner becomes a bell cow running back in one of the best offenses in football. But if Edmonds is playing, then all of a sudden, I mean, James Conner is someone you cannot consider starting. And now our next running back has been really good for fantasy purposes so far this season. He's actually been a high-end running back too. I'll admit that. But Melvin Gordon here. Melvin Gordon going up against the Baltimore Ravens. This is going to be by far and away the toughest matchup Melvin Gordon has. I mean, if we're going through and looking at who the Denver Broncos have played so far this season, they played the New York Jets in week 1. Beyond the New York Jets in week 2, they played the Jacksonville Jaguars. In week 3, they played the New York Giants. Actually, we mixed up the Jets and Giants. Anyway, they played both New York teams. They've also played the Jacksonville Jaguars to go along with it. Melvin Gordon did come away with a 70-yard rushing touchdown in week 1, which definitely inflated his stats from a yards per carry standpoint, as well as just an overall fantasy production standpoint. And this past week, I mean, of course, you're going up against the New York Jets. You're winning this game where you shut out that opposing team. Then Melvin Gordon is going to look decent. He's had 42 carries so far this year with 193 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. He's had 6 receptions out of this backfield as well with 76 receiving yards. So you actually really like the usage that you had from Melvin Gordon up until this point. But the problem is this is the first matchup this Denver Broncos team is playing where, I mean, you actually kind of have to be worried here if you're a Melvin Gordon owner, because we know that Javonte Williams, he's just waiting in the wings right now, just like what we said with Javonte Williams in drafts, that this was a running back that was not going to be the starting running back for Denver coming into the year, that Melvin Gordon was going to be the starting running back for the first 4 to 5 weeks, and then Javonte Williams was going to be slowly taking over. I mean, Melvin Gordon, yes, is still that starting running back for now, but it's just ticking and ticking and ticking and ticking that timer down to where Javonte Williams will be the lead running back. This is a much harder matchup. Right now, you actually have the Denver Broncos as 1-point favorites against the Baltimore Ravens. Personally, I'm going to be expecting the Ravens to win this game. I'm going to be expecting the Denver Broncos to have a much harder time moving the ball down the field against the Baltimore Ravens than they've had against these other subpar organizations like the New York Giants, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the New York Jets. It's a tougher matchup. We're still worried about Javonte Williams expanding his role. So despite Melvin Gordon being great through the first 3 weeks of the season, he's a running back that we want to be avoiding. Now, our next running back, someone that we are avoiding coming into drafts this year. Y'all know that we have him on very few teams, if any. Damien Harris. So with Damien Harris, I understand. I mean, no James White in this matchup is going to make it where Damien Harris is a lot more appealing here. But at the end of the day, this is just a running back that we have to be avoiding. I know he was everybody's favorite sleeper this past year. I mean, everybody would go, oh, we would love to draft Damien Harris in the 10th round, even though Damien Harris was a running back going in like the 6th round, which was just hilarious for people to even try to claim that. And we were saying, no, yeah, in the 6th, 7th round, Damien Harris, not someone you want to draft. Give me Kareem Hunt instead. And here Damien Harris is kind of proven exactly why we are avoiding him. I mean, he comes in and he's seen his usage just slowly dip down every single week this season. Where, yes, he had an impressive week against the Miami Dolphins in week 1, but since then, I mean, he's been atrocious. And on the season, he has 45 carries, 167 rushing yards, and he had a rushing touchdown to go along with it. And I know Damien Harris, on certain runs, he's looked good, and he's running behind a great offensive line. I mean, the problem with Damien Harris's value coming up until this point is people were focusing in on the wrong details. They were completely overlooking the lack of any ability that Damien Harris had in the receiving game, understanding how that drastically limited his ceiling in a PPR format, where he's only had 5 receptions and 16 receiving yards out of this backfield. That's not getting it done. If you are a running back that's only averaging like 6 receiving yards a game, if you're only averaging 5-6 receiving yards a game, you are completely touchdown reliant. So it doesn't matter if Damien Harris comes out and he runs for 100 rushing yards. If he has 100 rushing yards, 1 reception for 6 receiving yards, all of a sudden that's a stat line that gives him like 11 fantasy points. 11 fantasy points on a week. He's going to be a low-end running back 2, high-end running back 3 after cracking 100 rushing yards. That's why you need to be avoiding these players that don't have access to the passing down role in their offense. Now, also with Damien Harris, this is someone that has an atrocious matchup against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We said to bench Darrell Henderson / Sony Michel this past week based on the fact that they had that same matchup. Now, Sony Michel actually was pretty decent in this past game, mainly given the fact that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers just let up a massive lead to the Los Angeles Rams, allowing the Rams to run the ball consistently once they got to the 4th quarter. Now, that's not going to be the case with the New England Patriots and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We would imagine that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to be leading this game the majority of the time, and I'd imagine that this is not going to be an instance that when Tom Brady passes Drew Brees as the all-time passing leader this week in passing yardage, that, I mean, he's playing his old team. I'd imagine that they're not going to take just the foot off the gas pedal. I'd imagine that they're going to run this score up, and it's going to make it where really the New England Patriots have to throw the ball consistently in the second half. And with that being the case, I think Damien Harris is a running back that you can never consider starting, knowing that he is a touchdown or bust player, knowing that he won't have that usage in the receiving game. Even with a James White injury, The matchup's bad. Damien Harris's role in this offense is bad. You can't start him this week. Now, our next running back will be someone that is trending in the right direction. I know he looks like he is now going to be the starting running back for his offense. I don't care. His offense is atrocious. Let's go over to Michael Carter. And here with Michael Carter, yes, he's someone that you need on your roster, but please don't get ahead of yourself. I know this is most likely going to be one of the worst defenses that he's played up until this point, going up against the Tennessee Titans. And I am surprised to see that the spread on this game between the Tennessee Titans and the New York Jets is only 8 points. I honestly thought it would be a little bit larger than that, but clearly this offensive line is making it where we cannot start anybody on the New York Jets, and that includes Michael Carter for a considerable amount of time. Now, I will say Carter does have an intriguing profile where we know he was a very good receiving running back at UNC. So this is someone you could see just go through and expand his role and be appealing once we get to the end of the season, if you actually have improvement from this overall offense. But until we see the improvement from the offense, Michael Carter is still someone that you cannot consider starting, even if he is looking like the lead running back in New York. Now, our next running back, someone that we also did not want to be playing coming into the year. This is going to be Myles Gaskin going up against the Indianapolis Colts. And here with Myles Gaskin, I mean, it was very simple on why you wanted to be avoiding him coming into the season. And we have seen it play out so far this year, in that you're getting a considerable amount of usage from Malcolm Brown. I know Malcolm Brown, not many people want to view as a very talented running back, but this still is someone that coaching staffs love. And there was a clear reason that they decided to go out there and invest into Malcolm Brown this offseason. It's to give him a role in this offense. You're getting Malcolm Brown and Salvin Ahmad worked in. The Indianapolis Colts, yes, this is a decent matchup. And yes, Myles Gaskin had an okay week this past week, but at the end of the day, he's only had 27 carries, 139 rushing yards this season. Now, his usage in the receiving game is great, with 12 receptions out of the backfield and 57 receiving yards as well. I'm just very reluctant to go through and continue to start him whenever we saw that Malcolm Brown did have the usage in the red zone this past week, because if Malcolm Brown's going to get usage in the red zone, and that's going to just erase what Myles Gaskin has from a touchdown upside perspective, it'd be so hard to consider going through and playing Myles Gaskin. Now, our next running back here will be Devin Singletary. Now, yes, we actually included Zach Moss in our must-start running back video. And here with Devin Singletary, we're more so viewing him as, if he is going to have a role in this offense, it's going to be more as the passing down running back, getting targets out of the backfield. I think Zach Moss is clearly the guy that's going to get the usage in the red zone. And against the Houston Texans, this will be a game that I'm imagining that, the Buffalo Bills win by at least multiple touchdowns. The spread on this game is 16 points. Devin Singletary, while yes, he is a committee running back, a part of one of the most productive offenses in football. He's only had 35 rush attempts this year, 180 rushing yards, a rushing touchdown, 6 receptions for 17 receiving yards to go along with it. And one thing I really want to be pointing out here is the fact that with Devin Singletary, a lot of this production was actually just generated when Zach Moss was off the field in week 1, and then in week 2, he generated the majority of that production in one spike week play. So with Singletary, maybe I'm a little salty that he hit the over on his player prop in week 2 and we bet the under. Maybe I'm a little salty that, Zach Moss missed week 1, so my teams would be looking a lot better if Zach Moss has played all 3 weeks for best ball purposes. But regardless, here, Devin Singletary, not someone we can consider starting. And now our next running back, who you're going to see on the thumbnail when you click on this video, will be Miles Sanders for the Kansas City Chiefs matchup. And here with Miles Sanders, he's coming off a week where he literally had 2 carries. Jalen Hurts had 48 something dropbacks in this game, and Miles Sanders coming out with 2 carries, Kenneth Gainwell getting 1 of them. Clearly this is a spot where the Philadelphia Eagles get down big. Regardless of if you agree with it or not, this coaching staff is going to let Jalen Hurts continuously drop back to try to catch up on that lead. Now I'll say Miles Sanders will 100% have more usage in this offense this week than he had last. But still, against the Kansas City Chiefs, this should be a very similar scenario where, this game's not going to be close. You're going to have the Kansas City Chiefs, just like the Dallas Cowboys this past week, most likely getting to an early lead to start this game and making it where the Philadelphia Eagles are going to be at a deficit, having to continuously drop back with Jalen Hurts to throw the ball. And something we talked about coming into this season was the fact with Jalen Hurts, he was not going to be a quarterback that was looking to consistently check the ball down to the running backs coming out of the backfield, understanding that Jalen Hurts does have that rushing component to his game, so he can always scramble to the side. He can always try to extend the play without just hitting that dump off, a last option at the running back position. So Miles Sanders just so hard to start him in this matchup. I think we want to be starting Miles Sanders in games where it looks like it's going to be a little more competitive, in games where the Philadelphia Eagles could be leading, but not in a game where they're going to get blown out against the Chiefs. Now, our next running back will be Tony Pollard going up against the Carolina Panthers. Now, yes, Dallas looked fantastic this past week, and Tony Pollard was still in that committee role with Ezekiel Elliott, and I am excited about him for the long term, but a big issue is this Carolina Panthers defense is going to be one that I'm trying to avoid where we can. Now, up until this point, Tony Pollard's had 27 carries, 183 rushing yards, a rushing touchdown, 8 receptions, 65 receiving yards to go along with it. A very impressive stat line, but clearly based on what we had against Philadelphia, Ezekiel Elliott will be the running back with red zone usage. And with Ezekiel Elliott, this is someone that you just know there's a 0% chance that Tony Pollard comes out here and he takes over as the lead running back in this backfield, very similar to what we were saying with the Denver Broncos, where we are expecting Javonte Williams to take over as that lead running back. It's just not in the range of outcomes for Tony Pollard here. I think you can be starting Tony Pollard in matchups where you think the Dallas Cowboys are just going to get a massive lead and they're going to be running the ball consistently to drain the clock, similar to what you had with the Philadelphia Eagles this past week with the amount of rushing production that was in Dallas. I mean, if we knew that game was going to have that game flow, I would have been completely fine starting Tony Pollard. I mean, of course, Zeke gets the touchdown, so it wouldn't have looked like a great call. But against the Carolina Panthers here, I just think this is going to be a lower scoring game for Dallas than what we had the past week. Ezekiel Elliott still that lead running back. Definitely love Tony Pollard because if Ezekiel Elliott goes down, I mean, Tony Pollard looks like a top 10 running back. But for now, we are going to be avoiding. Now, our next running back will be Elijah Mitchell going up against the Seattle Seahawks. And we're going to include Elijah Mitchell / Trey Sermon here. I don't care who the starting running back is. Now, with Seattle, they just let up Alexander Mattison to have a monstrous performance. And Elijah Mitchell in particular has had a very nice workload through the 2 weeks where he's played. I mean, he's averaging 18 carries a game so far this season. But a big issue is with Elijah Mitchell and Trey Sermon, I think that we clearly see that the 49ers want to make this a running back backfield where Kyle Shanahan isn't giving the ball consistently to one running back over and over and over again. I'd imagine that this is a committee. And even this past week, when Trey Sermon was literally the only healthy running back in town, Kyle Shanahan was doing everything that he could to try to get some carries for Deebo Samuel, carries for Brandon Ayuk, carries for Deebo Samuel and George Kittle. I mean, it didn't matter. He was trying to do anything that he could to just lean away from a very subpar talented running back room that they have. So I think Elijah Mitchell, Trey Sermon, going to be guys that we're looking to avoid even with the nice matchup. And our last running back on this list will be Mike Davis, someone else that we hated coming into the season, given the fact that Mike Davis is just not a talented running back. He is not. I mean, we showed that based on a multitude of factors coming into the year. And now you're getting Cordell Patterson just with a ton of usage in this backfield. We saw it this past week with Cordell Patterson actually leading the Atlanta Falcons in receiving yards, which is, of course, something you're not expecting to happen every single week, but it kind of shows us that Cordell Patterson is here to stay. It wasn't just a fluke with what he had in Tampa Bay. Mike Davis, not a talented running back. Going up against Washington, it's an okay matchup, but Cordell Patterson, the usage is going to be way too high because anybody who was drafting Mike Davis, they were drafting him and they were yelling at me, Mason, he's going to get every touch out of the backfield. I mean, that's why Mike Davis is that valuable. Nobody was ever trying to argue that Mike Davis was that talented of a running back. So now if he's not getting every touch out of the backfield, I think he has to be on your do not start list moving forward. Now, thank you. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I really hope you got something from it. Of course, go down there, drop that like, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment letting me know why I am so stupid. And yeah, we'll be live streaming every single night. So make sure you subscribe, hit that bell, come out to a live stream. I'll try to answer as many questions as I can. That's all I got for y'all. And have a great day.